In 1898, a woman worked alone in a crumbling shed in Paris. No proper heat, no safety gear, no recognition. She was stirring boiling chemical mixtures by hand, breathing toxic fumes, processing literal tons of rock ore, looking for something so small it had never been seen before. The scientific establishment had already decided women didn't belong in laboratories. The university system of her home country had already told her she couldn't study at all. She ignored all of it. And what she found inside that shed didn't just earn her 2 Nobel Prizes, it unlocked the atom itself and built the foundation of modern nuclear science. Marie Sklodowsky was born into a country that no longer existed on any official map. Poland had been partitioned between Russia, Prussia, and Austria, and the Russian administration controlling Warsaw was determined to erase Polish identity entirely, banning the language in schools, suppressing culture, restricting access to education. For a Polish girl born in 1867, the walls were everywhere. Russia didn't want her educated. The wider scientific world didn't want her in its laboratories. Society didn't want her anywhere near the institutions that mattered. She spent her entire life walking through walls that everyone else accepted as permanent. Her father was a physics teacher who filled their small apartment with scientific instruments and kept his passion for knowledge alive despite the occupation surrounding him. Marie absorbed it completely. She was brilliant from childhood, finishing school at the top of every class, hungry for more learning than Russian-controlled Warsaw could legally offer her. So she made a plan with her sister Bronia that was audacious in its simplicity. They would take turns. Marie would work as a governess for years, sending money to fund Bronia's medical studies in Paris. Once Bronia was established, she would support Marie in return. It was a long, patient bet on each other, and it worked. In 1891, Marie arrived in Paris with almost nothing. She enrolled at the Sorbonne under the French version of her name, Marie, and threw herself into physics and mathematics with an intensity that left her classmates stunned. She lived in a freezing garret where she sometimes had to sleep in every piece of clothing she owned just to survive the winter nights. She went without meals to afford laboratory time. None of it slowed her down. She finished first in her physics degree, then came back for a second degree in mathematics. It was in those years that she met Marie Curie, a physicist of quiet genius who had revolutionized the understanding of magnetism. They recognized each other immediately as kindred spirits. They married in 1895 and built a life organized almost entirely around science. The discovery that would define Marie's legacy began with a mystery somebody else had left unsolved. In 1896, Henri Becquerel had noticed that uranium spontaneously emitted rays that could darken photographic plates, a strange observation he had filed away without fully pursuing. Marie chose it as the subject of her doctoral thesis. Working with an electrometer Pierre had designed, she measured the ionizing power of uranium rays with extraordinary precision and noticed something that stopped her completely. The radiation was proportional only to the quantity of uranium present, not to its chemical state, not to temperature, not to light exposure, not to anything external at all. It came from inside the atom itself, constant, intrinsic, and utterly unlike any known chemical process. This was the moment that cracked physics open. Marie named the phenomenon radioactivity, a word she coined for a concept that had never existed before. The atom, long considered the indivisible, unchanging foundation of matter, suddenly had an interior life that science had never suspected. Then she found something even more extraordinary. Testing pitchblende ore, she calculated that it was significantly more radioactive than its uranium content alone could explain. The arithmetic was clear and inescapable. Something else inside the ore was also radioactive, something unknown. Marie and Pierre abandoned everything else and began the search. In a leaking, drafty shed that a visiting colleague once described as fit for neither science nor human habitation, they processed ton after ton of pitchblende residue, boiling, dissolving, filtering, crystallizing, chasing an invisible presence through mountains of spent rock. In 1898, they announced two new elements: polonium, named for Marie's erased homeland, a defiant act of memory pressed into the periodic table for eternity, and radium, intensely radioactive, glowing faintly blue-green in the dark of the shed, beautiful and lethal in ways nobody yet understood. Marie spent 4 more years isolating enough pure radium to satisfy scientific proof. 1/10 of a gram required processing roughly a ton of raw ore. She did it with her own hands, her own arms, her own lungs, the radioactivity silently accumulating in her bones with each hour she worked. In 1903, the Nobel Prize in Physics arrived, shared with Pierre and Becquerel. Marie became the first woman in Nobel Prize history to receive one. The Swedish Academy had initially drafted the nomination without her name. Pierre refused to accept unless she was included as an equal. She was. Pierre died in 1906, struck by a horse-drawn cart on a rain-slicked Paris street, killed instantly. Marie absorbed the grief privately and kept working. She took over his professorship at the Sorbonne, becoming the first woman to hold a full professorship in the institution's 5-century history. In 1911, she received a second Nobel Prize in chemistry, becoming the only person ever to win in 2 separate scientific disciplines. That same year, the French Academy of Sciences voted whether to admit her as a member. They rejected her by 2 votes. The radioactivity that built her entire career was destroying her body throughout all of it. Decades of unprotected exposure to ionizing radiation had silently ravaged her bone marrow. She died on July 4, 1934, from aplastic anemia, her blood unable to regenerate. Her original laboratory notebooks remain so contaminated that researchers today must sign liability waivers and handle them in protective gear. They are stored in lead-lined boxes. They will remain radioactive for another 1,500 years. Her work lives in every radiation cancer treatment, every nuclear reactor, every medical imaging machine, every physics textbook opened by a student who has no idea how much of what they're reading traces back to a woman stirring boiling ore in a leaking shed in Paris long after everyone else had gone home.